It's 6:02. Waiting for one more to walk in. Oh, welcome.
Sorry. Thank you.
This is for the public hearing on the tree located at 48 Old Saugatuck. Right here. Um, so it started with a service request for us to go look at the tree. I didn't go look at the tree originally. Sarah and one of our road supervisors, both tree wardens, looked at the tree. And Sarah is an arborist, just so you guys know her qualifications. And to be perfectly honest with you, besides the approximation of the tree to the street is troubling, but not so troubling that we would remove the tree simply because of that. The tree was posted for removal because it's rotted at the bottom and it has no root structure to stop it from falling over.
Could you, I would disagree with the assessment of that as rotted. It's been hit by a car. I've lived there 24 years and it was originally hit by a car, so it had a wound. So this is a wound that's covered over. It's not rot.
Well,
There's no sign of rot.
just so you know, trees, right? They rot from within. They're hollow as they get
I know
older.
the trees are hollow.
Okay,
The living area.
my point is that this tree is you sounded it, you resisted
I
that.
know.
There's no structural integrity to the tree.
No is an extreme statement. There is structural integrity, but there is less structural integrity than a tree without that damage to
Okay,
it.
but if the tree were to fall and kill someone, would that sit well on your
Why would
conscience?
that hickory is not?
I'm sorry, if you're going to speak, can you please just state your name just for the record?
I'm Michelle Sorensen, 24 Poplar Street, around the corner.
Thank you.
Chris, do you want to describe the process of how this?
Yes,
So
so
it's
the process is we have the public hearing, the tree was posted. I have 3 days after today to give a decision on whether the tree is going to come down or not. Any one of you has 10 days after that to file a motion with State Superior Court and challenge the ruling.
Now, is there anything between cutting the whole tree down, which is very expensive with a tree that size, and trimming the tree?
So I can take us back to the assessment.
Sure.
So, like Chris said, our road supervisor, he supervises our tree crews. So he is the one 99.9% of the time going out and inspecting the trees and then putting in work orders, deciding what needs to be done, whether it's pruning, removal, structural pruning, getting clearance for a sidewalk. He's our guy on the ground. And so given the location of the tree, and that the decay or damage is at the base, he asked me to do another assessment because I'm a certified arborist both in the state of Connecticut and an ISA certified arborist. So I've been doing forestry for about 8 years, and so on these like tough calls, usually I'll come in and try to give a second assessment.
What does ISA stand for?
The International Society of Arborists. So that's a national accreditation. But so when I first came upon the tree, obviously its proximity to the road and the difficult visibility around that curb is something to keep in mind. It explains the damage at the base of the tree. I have more photos if folks like want to pass them around or take a look. I know you've seen the tree, but this is what we're honing in on, or what I was primarily looking at. The top of the tree, the structure is fair, as in there's not any major defects to the structure where I'm worried maybe branches are going to crack out, it will split. But it's missing a lot of limbs. It doesn't have a great taper. So most of the structure and canopy of the tree is all up top, and there's not branches going along the stem on the way down. And in that way,
By utility people.
yeah, that happens. Yeah, for a number of reasons. That's aesthetic, by utility, the city maybe to get clearance on the road. But when we have that kind of structure in the canopy, you can think of now the leaves and the branches are like a sail. So when a tree has that structure, I really want to make sure that the base of the tree is sound. It has a good root structure out at the bottom. Because otherwise, when you have a sail and a really strong wind comes by, if this is the point that's the weakest, that's what I'm worried about failing on the tree.
Sarah?
Can you give me one?
Yeah.
So the way that we all are assessing the trees at any point in time when we're doing an inspection, we are factoring in the ISA and kind of like best management practices surrounding risk assessment, because that's our duty working for the city. And so we're well educated in that, and that includes taking in or considering the health of the tree and the structure of the tree, but also the targets that might be hit by the tree, whether it's from a branch. The targets in this situation would be pedestrians walking along the sidewalk, people driving in motor vehicles on the street, potentially damage to property on either side. If there's power lines, that's included in terms of risk. And from there, we have to formulate the pros and cons there of how high of a risk is it to those targets, to the public, and does that warrant removal? Like, are we obligated to take that risk factor and need to take action in order to lower or eliminate that risk? Just to understand what we're going out there and doing. I'm not going up, looking at the tree and saying, you can take it. It's an in-depth process, and everyone on our forestry team works in that way. So I just wanted to list, really quickly, what my assessment was and what I sent to Chris. So this tree was posted on October 17th. I sent photos of the tree's condition, which have been shared. There are significant defects at the base of the tree, including loss of structural integrity, which is the damaged areas that then can become decayed. The tree is located between a footpath and the road with frequent targets. There are vehicles on that road pretty frequently, and pedestrians going at like a medium frequency. Likely that damage to the trunk was from a vehicle. The tree is located close enough to the road to obstruct visibility for drivers, which does create an unsafe roadway condition. It's a factor we consider. It's not the sole reason we would take down a tree. The canopy is in fair condition, but exhibits poor structure, which is what I was talking about before, where all the leaves and branches are up high. Overall, the condition of the tree and its location warrant removal based on our internal guidelines and forestry best practices. So I just wanted to explain what the assessment was, and that's our reasoning for why this is deemed a removal.
Great.
Sorry.
Great.
So
I'm glad, I appreciate your thorough evaluation of the tree, because health and safety is the number one reason to
Yeah.
consider all this. So anybody else other than the experts that know about trees, everything else is emotional or opinion.
sure,
And so
subjective.
it's subjective.
Yeah.
So for all those reasons, I have also concerned about the tree. And if you go to the base, you can dig out that it is decayed. It's not, it's bad.
Yeah.
And so I always thought that it would fall towards George and Kathy's house, not towards the golf
Across,
course.
yeah.
Yes. And then that would take out the power lines. And as you can see, the pole across the street has been hit so many times
Mhm.
that Frontier is replacing that pole because that's damaged, because that's such a pinch down point. And this tree has grown so far out towards the road that the road veers. I went out with somebody and we measured the roads. It pinches down significantly, so much so that the road's out of compliance
Okay.
of what a road should be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have those measurements. So it's a bigger problem, but we're only here to talk about the tree. With it being as in bad shape as it is, because you're an arborist, with the current drought, would love to see it down, because I'm reading that trees are falling on power lines and starting fires.
Yeah.
So I was walking in Silvermine and was there when the fire trucks were there putting one out. It was just over the weekend, so it's
Yeah.
real right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just two more points there. When we're thinking about risk assessment, none of us are ISA qualified to do so, but this is really the basis. It's a standard, a national standard, international standard that we're following to make sure it's not so subjective.
Yes.
And a big other issue is that basically the tree only has this entire side of roots intact. The trees against the curb and the roadway the roots against the roadway are no longer existent. So
I mean, facing the road.
yes,
Yes.
yeah, it's kind of like it's been
I
chopped
recognize.
historically. So aside from there just being decay here, I also know it's not in the ground
Can you,
on the
can you,
opposite side.
sound for the roots? Do you know that they've been cut? Because that would definitely have, convince me, but there's no sign of buckling at all on the road. And I would expect to see buckling if there were
One-
Well,
roots.
the buckling would, if there were roots
yeah.
and the
It
tree
is
was
a-
growing,
Yeah.
the road would not be in the condition it's in.
But I've lived
So
there for
the-
24 years and I haven't seen any evidence of I haven't seen any evidence of people cutting, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and then
And-
how far down do they have to excavate to install the asphalt road? I mean, that's
It's just,
significant.
it's superficial.
I think they have to
They
excavate.
haven't, they haven't reclaimed that road in a while, it's been overlaid.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So I don't think that we did a full reclamation of the road
Yeah.
where, all the way down to its foundation.
I just wanted to mention that this is the 7th largest Caria cordiformis, a bitter nut hickory in the state. 7th largest by diameter. So I just think it warrants a little bit more consideration. I've estimated its age at 325 years based on the Western Pennsylvania Conservancy factor of multiplying the diameter at breast height, which is 40 inches, by a factor of 8. That is that the 4 8 320. So 4 8 is 32, 320
It's got
years,
a good life,
which
hasn't it?
is a
Yeah.
long time, but it can live a lot longer than that.
Unless it
and-
falls.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
then we're talking about flexural strength. Hickory has the strongest flexural strength of any tree domestically,
Unless it's uprooted, right? Like if a wind
Yeah.
comes along and the
That's
tree is uprooted, I mean, I've seen trees that
Yeah.
people,
Yes.
during Hurricane Sandy and Hurricane Isaias, that a
How
lot
about
of
the
trees.
hickory? I'm talking about hickory because it's a different type of wood. It's 8 times more dense. A tulip tree has a factor of 2 because it's so fast growing and it's not dense.
If it was a
hickory-
tulip, we would have taken it down without even posting it.
Absolutely, because they're kind of junk.
Just so I'm just saying
Yeah.
it.
So I'm just saying, this is like my grandmother. I'm just saying, yeah, she's old, she's got some damage, but how do you replace? You can't plant 30 12-foot saplings and replace that tree. There is no easy replacement of the ecosystem services that this tree is providing in terms of carbon capture, shade. Shade is critical with climate change, heat, because you have an asphalt road, the heat island effect, so shade trees. But in terms of a sale, this tree does not present a sale because it's a hickory. The hickory is the last tree to leaf out in the spring, and it's the first tree to lose its leaves. It's got a compound leaf, and the compound leaf has leaflets. They're very small, and when they fall, they're not sales. They're not like a Norway maple. Norway maple would cut this down instantly, and I would not argue with it at all.
Right.
But this is a tree that does not present sales, and the drought does have me concerned. But you're more likely, in my view, to see trees falling when you have heavy rain, like we had in August, when you have 4 inches in 2 days. That's concerning. But as you know, we haven't had significant rain since August 19th. Less than half an inch since then. Tomorrow night, we're supposed to get as much as almost up to 2 inches. So I have a business, Native Landscapes. I've planted 130 trees on Sherwood Island, and I plant trees for my business and trees and shrubs. And I'm a Yukon Master Gardener, and I've been studying trees since I was a kid. So I'm 75 years old. I'm just being an advocate for this tree to say, let's make the best decision.
And
And-
those factors absolutely have to be considered. So,
Yes, and why not put, in terms of traffic, people are moving too fast on this road. I don't want to make it easier for them to move fast.
Oh, yeah.
That's part of my,
Go
can I
ahead.
just piggyback on that?
Yeah.
I mean,
Can-
I'm a
can-
neighbor.
I'm
as well,
sorry,
live right
can-
down the
can you-
street.
Can
I'm
you
sorry.
please, can you please state your name if you're gonna
Yes,
speak?
Jeffrey Libby.
Thank
And I
you.
live at 60 Old Saugatuck. And this is the most majestic tree in our neighborhood. It's an amazing, I think it should be nominated for legacy tree. It's 120 inches in circumference. It's really
128.
amazing. And it's been hit. I feel like we're punishing it because of the human things that we've done with the roads and the cars. I respect and appreciate your professionalism about the health of the tree. It presents as a pretty healthy tree. It has a full, I mean, it presents as a healthy tree. I've watched it for 6 or 7 years now, and so I really feel like we're punishing the tree because of man, which I think is really unfair. And I think it's ancient, and while it may not last another 100 years, I think it has a good long while in it. I don't think it's going anywhere. It's very firmly rooted where it is. I'm going to piggyback on that to say that other factors beyond health, which we have to consider, or I consider at least, is that Old Saugatuck is a raceway of a speedway. And we are the cut-through road between East Norwalk and Westport. And with our high density housing going in, we're just getting more and more traffic. My understanding from my neighbors is that we've asked many times for speed bumps, which is not about you guys, but that nobody will do that. And this tree is one of the only things that stops people from going 75 miles an hour. And a lot of times they're going over 50 and 60 easily in a 25-mile-an-hour zone. It's a very difficult place for police to be present. I think that's why they're not there. I don't know. I have made reference to the police many times about the speed. It's a very dangerous road. The walkway, as you aptly called it, because it's not a sidewalk, is somewhere between 12 and 24 inches on this road, which gets a lot of foot traffic actually. And the tree also protects the pedestrians.
Yes, it does.
As somebody who walks their dog there, I can tell you that the safest I feel is when I'm within 20 feet of that tree on either side. And somebody who drives that road many, many times a day, I appreciate that it requires people to slow down and take their time. So its beauty, its size, its majesticness, I can't even imagine losing it in the neighborhood. And I don't know what the country club conversation was before we came in, but the country club's not a terribly good neighbor. They've cut down most of the trees on the course, which is their right and their reasons. But I don't know if they're any part of this or not, because we've been losing trees on the street. We've just lost several trees up the road that they took out, and they posted, so I can tell you, they posted a tree across from my house, directly across.
Yes, why
And
did
it
that
was-
get removed?
And it was dead. It was dead. Needed to come down. Unsafe. And they posted it, and I did not complain or say anything because it needs to come down. I agreed with it. They took out like 5 trees. So it was I don't know what the proper gardening term is. It was a multi-trunked tree,
Oh,
but 2 or 3 of them that came with it were perfectly healthy. But then 2 or 3 that were nearby in the 8 to 10 inch range also went. Now they did a great job. They took it out today. Today, ironically,
Just today.
I'm the one who wrote the letter of complaint to stop this. Today they came and ground down the
Yep.
stump
I saw
and
that.
brought in the dirt, which
Yeah.
yeah,
that one, they
there
finally
were
fixed
multiple
it
ones.
today.
Multiple.
That's just our policy, by the way, is anytime we take a tree down, we grind the stump.
Well, they did a good job. They did
I
a good job.
disagree with that. It's not advanced practice. The stump provides nutrients that are really important.
It's a li-
It's a
for
liability.
liability.
Why? In what way? Is it a way?
Tripping hazard.
So who's gonna?
Well, nobody's gonna trip there. Nobody's gonna step there.
No, it's also an obstruction close to the road, right? So the city right of way is there, and believe we've been
The one he's talking about though is
we've
way
been
up on
to
the
like
hill.
we try not to put rocks right alongside the edge of the pavement either. That's not a good idea.
Of course.
So, and Peter Menking, I live on 89 Old Saugatuck Road, so I walk this road every day, drive it every day, multiple times. First, I absolutely do not. I think maybe again, respect the profession, the arborist nature of it. Couple of questions. Number one, what type of wind speed? And if this is something you can't estimate, if you can't, that's fine. What type of winds would need to come with a storm in full leaf to take this tree down? Like, are we talking about, a normal storm, a typical storm? I've been here for 7 years. I walk that road every single day. I don't see large branches falling. There are a couple of times actually by my house, I've, dragged some stuff off of the street, but normal branches, not massive. I haven't seen anything ever from that tree come down at any point. And I realize what you're saying is it wouldn't be that it would individually come off, it would be that the whole thing would come down in one fell swoop. What kind of wind speed would be required to take the tree down?
So the difficult part of our job is that we are doing a visual inspection at the very least,
Sure.
and using an instrument to detect decay at the very most. Like aside from that, we're relying on these standards
Sure.
to follow. When I know that there is missing bark, decay at the trunk specifically, that's increasing the risk of the tree in general.
Sure.
But it's not saying if a storm at this wind speed, like you know what I mean?
Totally, absolutely.
So-
We're on the same page on that regard. The
Yeah.
reason I asked the question is because having been here for 7 years, I'm from Stanford originally, so I've been in this area my whole life. There are relatively few storms that come through in this area, certainly since I've been here, that have done any negative, significant impact that I've seen. And I have to very much agree. I apologize. What was your name again? Jeffrey. Peter. It's nice to meet you. I think I walk by you all the time.
Except that tree that hit that house right near you.
Right, I'm like,
But
on
there
Cameron
have been
Road.
a
Sure,
lot
I'm
of
saying-
damage
I'm
on the
saying-
corner from Pine Street to Marvin Street. That
Sure. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but he is correct. You brought up, I think, an excellent point about public safety. If this tree comes down and you guys get rid of the stump, there are, I can almost guarantee it, going to be cars and trucks and all that stuff that are going to come up on that sidewalk, and they are like, I mean, there's kids, there's dogs, there's all this type of stuff. Someone will get hit by a car going 50 miles an hour. And I'm not being dramatic by that. I walk that every day, and he's not wrong.
It's
The
scary.
safest place that I feel
Oh,
on
yeah.
that tiny sidewalk that disappears when I have to get to my house, that disappears, is behind that tree. And as a driver, it creates a visual impediment. So you can't know if someone's coming the other way. But you come down that hill, and if somebody can see clear as day that there's nobody coming, people already go 40, 50 miles an hour around this turn.
Easy.
They're going to take that turn at 60 and at 25. And my concern is that, yes, there is a risk to public safety when it talks about the tree coming down. However, there's a risk to public safety only in that case in the event of what sounds like a substantial sustained storm with high winds in the right conditions. If you take that tree down, the public safety issue is every single day unless there is a dramatic improvement to the road itself, to barriers, to something like that. So if we're talking about public safety from just a utility perspective, cutting down the tree might save a power line or whatever if somebody happens to be there, which
Or
God
life.
forbid, or absolutely no, that's what I said. That's
Or a
what I was just gonna say. God
Right.
forbid. And I understand their
Yeah.
house is beautiful. I wouldn't want their house touched. It's fantastic. That said, if all the city is going to do is come in, take the tree down, sand down the stump, that'll be like the 10th tree we've lost on this short stretch of road in the last year. There's been a bunch that have been taken down. That'll
Even
dr-
illegally.
a couple, I'm sure, and there'll be a significant depreciation in that area specifically of cover and of shade and all of that stuff. But most importantly, if we're talking about public safety, which is the route you guys are coming from, you will make it less safe if you cut the tree down with nothing else being done in terms of speed limiting, in terms of reconstruction of that corner or that turn. If that tree comes down and that's just flat land, people are gonna fly over that thing, man. Like
Why can't you cut the tree to 40 feet? And a trunk that's 4 foot wide, if you took off the top, is not going to fall down. I
That
don't
honestly-
understand why
that's
you-
not.
I understand
practices, though, to top a tree. Right? You know that.
I understand that you
But
probably
I'd rather
can't do
do
that. but,
that
like,
than have the whole thing.
if the point is public safety utility, then I would like to, if I don't want to challenge the removal, would be to see that there was some evidence that public safety was the number one concern by the city, which I understand is not in your guys' purview.
No, but I would agree
Right.
with you that a conversation with traffic mobility and parking before we take the tree down should be had
Yeah,
on our part to ensure. I agree with
Safety
you.
of the road.
yeah,
Right,
it's
right.
yeah, because like I'd love to keep living here. I don't want to get hit by a car, and I can promise you, there's some people who notice late. We all know people text and drive. It's a cut through for people to escape 16 to 17 with all the traffic that's been going
And
on.
the kids we
People know
find
about
eating
it.
liquor bottles on the side
Oh,
of the road.
yeah,
my favorite
day.
thing is how many Smirnoff
Fireball.
handles that I see that
Fireball.
people are
So
sitting
the
outside
kids
the
are
road.
driving, they're drunk.
It's
The
just-
kids are driving.
Okay,
It's
I'm
exactly
sorry, I
what
have
people
also
know
two
about it.
people online that would like to speak, so I'm gonna unmute them if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah,
Sure.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay,
Can
Miss
we
Cece, I'm
turn this
gonna
up?
unmute.
Yeah, we're gonna
Can't
turn
hear
your
a
volume
word
up.
you're saying.
Is it?
Is there any way to put a tree on alert? Come
Okay.
back to it annually?
That's what I was-
Miss Cece, you are unmuted?
Good evening. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Thank you, everyone. First of all, this is Diane Cece, 37 Olmsted Place in East Norwalk. I'm also sit on the East Norwalk Neighborhood Association. And oops, did I just lose you here?
No.
Oh, okay, sorry, I lost the screen there. Thank you. I also am on the East Norwalk Neighborhood Association. My current capacity is president of the board. Just a couple of, I hate to be a stickler, but a couple of housekeeping items that are really of concern to me with this hearing tonight. I want to find out if this is an informal public hearing that's done just by department policy, or if this is now part of our city ordinances to hold the public hearing, a legal public hearing, because I'm not sure that this was properly noticed.
It was, and it is, and it's according to state law.
I'm sorry, who's that speaking? Chris, Corey?
Yes, it's Chris. Yes.
Hi, Chris.
Diane.
I'm sorry, I didn't want for you to interrupt me, but you can go ahead and, so this was, can you tell me when it was in the Norwalk Hour then for the legal notice?
Elaine, can you speak to that?
I would have to get the email from them, but I can send it to you if you need me to.
Thank you.
Sure.
And I'm sorry, who is that speaking?
It's Delene Bird with Public Works.
Oh, hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, if you can do that, I'm probably, I always say this, I'm maybe one of only a couple of L's on my forehead in the city of people that read the legals every day. And I'm not sure how this one would have gotten past me. In any event, I logged on to this public hearing at 5:57 through Zoom, but wasn't admitted into the room until 6:03. And it seems that the meeting was well underway. So I'm also
Started at
concerned
6:02,
about,
Diane.
I'm sorry?
The meeting started at 6:02.
Okay, so I'm not quite sure what I missed at the beginning of the meeting. I'm hoping it wasn't anything that was particularly relevant or germane, but what I was hoping to see was the opening by city staff to explain what was going on with this tree. I understand that there's an opportunity to appeal if there's a decision made on this to remove the tree, that there's still an opportunity within so many days to appeal the decision. And so I certainly will take advantage of watching the tape of what I missed in a couple of minutes there. Okay, so having said all of that, and I'm listening to a couple of residents there. I'm sorry I didn't catch everyone's names, but I am, in East Norwalk, I don't, for the city folks that are here, I don't think I have to tell you that tree canopy in East Norwalk is a very important topic. We can't afford to lose any more tree canopy, and we're desperate to get additional tree canopy into East Norwalk, especially given what's the potential for future development here. And so I just want to make sure that, and I'm sure this, I hope this is what's happening, is that you guys are being very prudent in examining this tree and making a determination that it should come down. I'm not sure that I heard anything tonight that convinces me of that, except for when I first logged in, I believe I was listening to Chris talk about a root rot on a portion of the tree, and that while it may appear healthy, it may not be. And of course, I'm completely sympathetic to the liability on the city once it's a known fact that this tree could be unhealthy. If it comes down and someone gets hurt, then there's potential for a lawsuit there. I also understand, though, the concern that folks have with the fact that what actually prompted this tree to be looked at in the first place. Where did the request come in from? Was it a routine examination? Does it have anything to do with the golf clubs, the country club there? And also, I do know that, or would want to know if this had anything to do with any concerns with sightline and vehicle hits over there as well. To one of the people that was just speaking, in terms of the liability here, I understand that if this tree came down and there was damage, and the city knew that the tree was unhealthy, then that's something they have to consider. But I do want to say, if in the end they decide to take this tree down, and then there is speeding, and that causes some accident or damage or injury, that it's not necessarily easy to prove that someone was speeding, because this tree is no longer there. So there's all kinds of concern that go with someone trying to pursue that. I guess a couple of my concerns are, because I missed the beginning of the meeting, if someone could just very quickly tell me how this even came to be that you're considering taking down what appears to be, possibly a historic tree and something that's providing canopy and shade and some degree of traffic calming. And then also I would like to see if someone could talk to the alternatives that can be considered. And in the absence of all that, have you already discussed, or are you going to discuss what your plans are to replace this tree in that location, I'm assuming?
There's a city tree
Sorry, sir.
ordinance about replacing trees, Diane.
Mhm.
The call came from a customer service request, and I don't think that the tree being there or not there is going to let us know if there's people speeding like you just spoke to.
Okay, was the request related to someone thinking that the tree appeared to be unhealthy, or was it that someone thought that the tree was an impediment to driving as fast as they'd like on the road? Or do you have any information on what their concern was?
I can
Both.
answer that because I'm the person who put in the request. I put
Hi.
it in because I'm worried about the safety of the tree, because I was here when it was hit. And I heard that collision far up the road. I saw the entire bumper of the car there. And I've seen that tree completely fall apart, decay over these years. It happened a long time ago. The base of the tree is rotted out. And as we walk it, I was walking with other people, we all voiced concern about this, the safety of it and it falling. So there's many that love it because of its foliage on top. That heaviness of that foliage will cause it to fall because there is so much rot at that side.
It's
not
not heavy
rotten.
foliage.
It's not rotten either.
heavy foliage.
Not rotten.
So
We're not
that's
going to
a
debate
key
it.
here.
So
Yeah, so that's why I asked you to come up, because we're all talking about, I don't know, I just asked for it to be looked at. And I asked the golf department, I asked other people, I said, can TTD look at it? Like somebody, I'm not an arborist, but and it's just my opinion, it doesn't look well. Is there somebody that has, this is their job? And can you meet me there to look at it? So we're not talking from emotion, we're talking from fact.
Well, no one's talking.
So-
well, I'm not saying
Yeah,
anybody.
yeah.
We're not talking
You are
from
talking
emotion.
from- yeah,
We're
you're
talking from fact.
And that's how you make the decision.
Deline, do we have anyone else that would like to speak?
But
Yeah, yes, we do. So,
Okay,
Diane?
and I would just like to add then, if it's possible, and to the to the young lady there who's the arborist. I believe you're the arborist for the city now. But Chris, is there something in the city's policy that we can do a third party review of this unrelated to the city's assessment?
There is not, Diane. We're just following state law. Our city ordinance on trees kind of mirrors the state law on tree law, so that's what we go with, Diane.
Are there other options, like he was asking, is it just whole tree comes down, that's it? Is that the only? Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Takashi Tsuchiya, as you started to ask before, how often do you monitor?
Can you speak up? I'm sorry. hon.
and
How,
can you
how,
also?
how often these trees are monitored once the voice has been raised for the risk, potential risk? Every 6 months, every 3
The
months?
city has 35,000 trees, and there's 2 people sitting here.
Okay.
So if that answers that question.
Yeah.
So we
My
are-
second question is we're just talking, people are talking about cut down or preserve, cut down with black and white. But a lot of trees, if we are concerned about the wind resistance, there's some tree companies just try to trim all the suckers, make it less dense to reduce the pressure when the wind comes, especially from the water. Have we ever considered, do you have such practice in
Yeah.
your department?
So the issue with the damage and the loss of structural integrity at the base of the tree is that's not repairable. There's no substance on the market. There's no
Even though you
band-aid for it.
you lighten the top
Yes. Like
and
years ago,
make it less dense.
yeah, years ago, people would fill holes in trees with concrete because they thought that might help. And we learned by many arborists putting their chainsaw into concrete in a tree that it does not affect the stability. So if there were any other issues, we may be able to cable the tree to make sure the limbs are attached well, may be able to
That
prune
was
in
my
a certain
next
way,
question.
may be able to fix the roots a little bit. But when it's the base of the tree where this is the point
Where the
where
root
it's-
flare is, right, where the
Yeah.
trunk of the tree meets the ground, there's no buttress roots that anchor this tree on half the
they're
tree.
missing. Yeah. So we can't repair it in that way. The same thing happens
If it
on
wasn't
our,
like that, and we had a good root flare all the way around,
this would be a
we
lot
wouldn't be
easier
having
to-
the conversation right now.
So you don't think, let's say you take half of the canopy away. Your concern obviously is public safety, understandable. You don't want
Right.
to see your friend's house hit. You don't want to see anyone get hurt. It's a completely noble concept. So even if we remove half the canopy of the tree, you're saying that doesn't mitigate the overall risk because the damage at the base is so severe.
I would strongly advise against it because then we're affecting the integrity of the tree up top. Like,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned that there should be a conversation between yourself and then.
TNT.
Thank you very
Or
much.
that folks should suggest to that department that is responsible for designing.
So those are two different answers.
TNT
Folks should
stands
suggest, or you guys will have the
Well,
conversation.
I'm gonna
Conversation.
have the conversation because
Okay.
before we take the tree down,
Okay,
I know I have 3 days to give you a decision, but
Sure.
if you guys waive that, I would like to take the extra time to do the due diligence and find out about safety being our number one priority, one way or the other,
sure.
before we take the tree down,
Sure.
what the ultimate plan is for that spot.
Great.
I'm perfectly happy to do that because again, as a matter of public safety, liability for the city, all that type of stuff, the big thing for me is what will keep it safer when the tree is gone. The risk of storm, obviously legitimate. And I'm sure it was very difficult for you to hear that crash. I'm sure that must have been a giant noise. I'm sure it stuck with you. But it seems like that's the only time the tree has been hit by a car in this
Oh,
whole
no,
time.
no,
There's
no,
been
no.
hit multiple
The
times.
pole across the street from it
Oh, I
was
know
hit
the
four
pole. No,
times. Yeah, and
I
that
drove by at night with
Yeah.
the dude just plastered right in the middle of that pole. That was a fun trip back home. But
Yeah.
regardless, I don't think that widening the street at that place would make anything safer or
No,
better, which it kind
I
of sounds
think
like that's
stop
what you
signs.
want.
Stop signs at a couple different points would just pop.
How about reflectors? Stop sign, I don't want any more stop signs.
Well, that's a
Well, that's a
raceway.
traffic. Let's
Yeah,
let's
yeah,
get.
yeah.
We
well,
have
that's
people
an
waiting
apartment,
on
yeah.
online to
Yeah.
speak, and then we can further
Let's
the
hear it.
discussion.
Yeah, first of all, Diane, just for the record, it was posted in the hour on November 6th. And I'm going to unmute Mr. or Mrs. Green.
Hi,
Hello. Hi.
this is Josh Green. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. I live at 74 Old Sagatuck, so I'm right next to Jeffrey, who spoke a little bit earlier. I am speaking on behalf of the health of the tree. I was not there when this happened, but I was told, I don't know if George, who lives directly across the street, is in the room, but I was told that he may have walked up to the tree recently with the signs being posted with a screwdriver just to test it, and the screwdriver went straight through it, suggesting that it is not necessarily super healthy. I know someone's trying to talk there.
Yeah, I can
So-
attest that
Yeah.
that was not city staff. That would have
Okay.
No, it's
I
right
was
across
led
the
to-
street
I-
from the tree. A
done.
neighbor.
Okay.
Yeah, I was led to believe that that had happened, which makes me feel like the integrity of the tree at the base, like you were saying, is not extraordinarily sound. So with that being said, and the fact that I'm not that far down the street, I do support its removal just because it doesn't feel safe. As far as the
I wanted to look him in the
Other-
eye when he said that.
as far as the other trees in the area, I know there was a gentleman who spoke earlier saying that he hadn't heard of big storms and trees coming down. The house on the other side of me, not Jeffrey who's in the room, but the other side on Old Sagatuck, I think they're probably 80 something. A tree fell on their house, a huge tree 2 years ago, and it wasn't a huge storm. So
Wasn't
it is
Hickory-
possible.
Was not a
No,
Hickory.
I live right next to those people. I know exactly what happened. That tree had rot in it that they should have seen, and then it came down because it was an installed tree that was put there by landscapers when the property was bifurcated in like the 50s. So that
Yep.
tree was a rich person's barrier tree, not a tree that's been here since
300
before
years.
the country
Yep.
was founded. So just
Understood,
as a
but
point of order.
right.
on that.
But I did
I
see
helped
that
clean
tree.
up
I
the
heard
trees.
that tree come down and crash into their house. So I've seen trees come down and hear them, and it's pretty terrifying. So with that being said as well, for me, the idea of the tree not being healthy, having not a great root structure, feels like it should come down. As far as new trees being planted, I know we've had trees be planted on our property by the town, and they seem to have a pretty big surplus of funds to add a tree canopy around town. I was just contacted by a woman named Dane McLeod, who works at the City of Norwalk Tree Committee, and that's separate from the Tree Alliance, who also give away trees. So it feels like we might be able to get a new tree put in there, recognizing it won't have the historical value, but
That's
at least we can
not-
start building it up.
He wants a new tree.
But but would you guys put a new tree in there,
A
given the
12-foot
proximity
tree
of the
is gonna
road?
replace an 80-foot, 300-year-old
Well,
tree.
let everyone
I'm
talk.
just
So,
curious.
so
Would
I-
you do
I'm-
that?
we
So-
would
so-
plant, we have to by our ordinance, any tree that we take down, we have to plant enough trees that it matches like 6 to 1 for every, that's probably
Is-
100 trees that we have to plant for that one tree.
On in
But-
the city in
But you
general.
can request as residents, anyone can, to reline your street with trees. We would come out and assess if it was feasible and then plant trees. We,
Has that been done for
So-
the one that just got cut down?
not
The one-
yet, not yet. It was, if you're familiar with East Norwalk, there was in the island, there was like a Christmas tree, a spruce that we took down there and we did replant the third taxing district.
Okay, cool.
For yes.
That's
So,
awesome.
so that's what we do. We as a city plant more trees than we remove.
Oh, for sure. No, I know that.
Yeah, and so I can say, based on the diameter of this tree, we are required to plant 14 trees at a certain diameter to, as a replacement plan. They
Thank
are
you,
not
that's very
immediately
helpful.
replacing the benefits of the trees, but you're
There
taking.
in that spot.
So when we plant, we follow this rule of right tree, right place. There are plenty of spots to plant
Right,
on
right.
this road.
Yeah.
We don't prefer to put them right next to the roadway when there's no shoulder or anything like that. You know, TMP is developing these design guides of trees do slow traffic, and they're trying to integrate them into our construction design now.
Sure.
So this particular location, I could probably fit one behind the wall or a different like offset from where it is right now. But yeah.
When you say
we would-
behind the wall, I apologize. Are you talking about?
behind the back of side or the walkway.
Delaney, do we have anyone else?
I just want to chime in one last
We do
thing
not.
because I know there was a lot of conversation also about the safety of the roadway minus the tree, and I completely agree that cars go slower around that tree, and it is a big help to help mitigate some of the speeding. But I was also part of that team that helped measure the roadway in that area, and the road right around that turn, because of the tree being there, I believe is narrower than meets the spec for a safe roadway. So if we were to remove it, we could actually widen the roadway, not to allow cars to speed or even help them speed, but to make it so that you're not at risk of hitting the other car when, as you were just talking about earlier, There are drunk people on that street who are throwing their liquor bottles on the street. We get that. I see that. And I live 2 houses down basically from that tree. So I go around it multiple times a day, every day. And when I go around it, 9 times out of 10, I have to come to almost a screeching halt because the car on the other side is in my lane and I'm going to get hit and I have nowhere to go. So it's not necessarily that it keeps people driving safely at a decent speed. I'm at risk of getting hit because people are driving in my lane and I will otherwise hit the tree. So from my perspective, I think we should work on
I think
making
it's two separate issues. One
Exactly.
issue is
Exactly.
a police and city issue about traffic calming measures for Old Saugatuck, being that it's a cut through. And I agree with everyone's sentiment in the room concerning that and regarding that. The other thing is we're here to talk about the tree.
about the
And
tree.
it's
And I
rotted
don't
at
think
the
the tree,
base that cannot
Exactly.
be fixed. So how we get around that, I don't know. Probably we don't.
Chris, can I ask another question as well of the arborist?
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. I don't know your name. So
Sarah.
Sarah Cruz.
hi, Sarah. Nice to meet you. This may sound like a silly question, but are you able to are you ever able to identify the cause of the rot that you have diagnosed there? Is this something strictly related to the age of this tree, or could it have something to do with the physical location of it there at the road? You know, like either exhaust or road salt or
All of the
So
above.
from a visual assessment, it looks as though there was damage to that trunk in that area, which then the tree was not able to create wound wood to cover, and so decay has entered into the base of the tree and likely is going into the buttress of the root, which is an important anchoring piece of the tree.
and for whatever method that you use to determine this, again, I missed the beginning of the meeting. Are you certain within a reasonable doubt, I guess, that this really is completely rotted on one side? Because obviously, I don't think anyone wants to have an unsafe tree. And we're not even talking about liability at this point, but I don't think any of us want to have a tree where you're talking about a tree that size that's rotted at the bottom.
We've sounded it, Diane, and we have a machine called a resistograph that has a drill bit that goes into the tree, and the resistance makes it like an EKG, and that's a flatline tree.
Okay, and are you seeing that with other trees in the same vicinity, or only looked at this one based on the resident obvious concern with this one?
Yeah, we only looked at this one on that particular street, Diane, and I get the concern about the tree canopy. If you go further down Old Saugatuck, closer to the bottom where you get to Westport, a lot of those homes took all the trees down. They have them maybe 50 feet into their property because their lots are 700 feet long.
Right.
But
right.
Again, I agree that wider streets does not calm traffic. So that's a traffic conversation. I'm not a traffic guy.
Yeah, and I am pleased you're going to consult with TMP because they can speak more to that issue than any of us. And I think as a whole, as big an issue as trees are in East Norwalk, there's folks I know in that room who can attest to how concerned we are with enforcement, speeding enforcement, traffic enforcement, or lack thereof, as the case may be. Thank you so much, you guys.
Thank you, Diane.
I just wanted to make a note also to your point earlier of it's not the tree's fault that it got hit by a car or that it was wounded, but we also can't rely on the tree to be like a bollard that's providing some kind of safety at the moment. It's kind of putting the two at odds with each other. So,
No, and I agree. And I don't want to lean the conversation too hard toward the traffic part,
yeah,
but I want to lean it more towards the fact that it's a majestic legacy, ancient tree that while it certainly has been hit, and I can see that it does not look or appear, I mean, I hear the results. I'm not going to argue with science. It doesn't really present as an ill tree. It really presents as a very sound tree. And I have no doubt that it doesn't have another 100 years. That's why I wish there was some middle ground of like, we could come back to it every year and re-examine it to see if it starts to lose its canopy or drop wood or something that would say it's really a safety risk. Because I do feel like we're taking it, and which is apparently what's going to happen because
We do have that program. So let's say we got this customer service request and the supervisor or Sarah went out. There are times that we'll put in there, we're going to monitor this tree over the next 5 years and have someone go out and take a look at it because we're unsure if it's going to come down or not. We've done sidewalk projects that we air spaded the root system structure so specifically not to damage the trees.
right.
And those are Bradford pears. So we care about every tree, not just
Even a darn red.
even a Bradford pear
We
tree.
don't care
So,
about those, right?
and
Invasive.
believe it or not, this project was done 3 years ago, and 3 of the trees are still fine. But I can't say with any certainty that this tree is going to come down or not going to come down. All I can say was that with all the facts that were given, it is not being contested that it's rotted at the base. And if the tree was somewhere in the woods, we would leave it up. But there is a target for the tree, and I honestly don't care about the power as much as, like, if the tree fell out, and if I thought the power wires would hold this tree up, perfect. But it's not. And I am going to talk to TNP, and I'm going to talk with Sarah a little bit more and the team, and see if there's anything else that we can do to, because honestly, I don't want to cut this tree down and then have you all come to me when taking photos and say, "We told you."
I mean, that's genuinely. I appreciate all parts of this. I'm super jazzed about all.
But if you guys aren't in a super hurry, we're not in a super hurry
No,
to take
not
the
at all.
tree
No,
down.
I'd
So
like to
we're
slow
going to
this
make an
down.
informed decision and go from there.
Yeah.
Let's do what government does best on a local level. Let's
Yeah,
do
right.
it.
Let's slow down, right? Yeah.
And can I just give you an
Address
aside?
safety.
I know I did my research about your department and everything, and I know you posted it exactly the way you're supposed to post it. It felt sneaky because nobody can read that sign. You'd
You have to walk up to it like,
right.
yeah, I
And,
get
and
it.
it says facing the road. Yeah, I mean it's what it's supposed to
It
be.
actually kind of looked like someone ripped down part of it.
I thought that was kind of
Like that, the only one that you could see, I have to like wait and step out into the road to take a
Which,
picture of.
yes,
But there was staples. It looked like you guys posted 2, and then somebody ripped one
So,
of them.
that happens a lot, but just so when we post a tree, just for legal reasons, we take a picture when we post it.
Oh, yeah.
So
totally get that.
that happens a lot where you see staples in a tree, but you don't see the posting. You see a little red triangle of
Okay.
paper.
I think the biggest issue is just there's been a lot of trees taken down on this road in the last year. I've been here for 7 years. This year, there's like we've lost like 10 to 12-ish
the
trees.
guy at 100 hired a guy to, an independent guy to come and start cutting the tree down.
Just
I
everything.
caught him in the midst and I
Yeah.
said, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
So
they-
what I take from that, 'cause my job is to manage our tree planting program, is
Yeah.
that East Norwalk is identified as an important area, even in our draft plan and our
Yeah.
inventory that we're working on. So especially when folks request them on the city website and
I
things,
will
but from
definitely
here,
request every tree I can.
knowing that you guys live there, you know the history, you know whether the trees that are there are private
It'd
or
be-
in the right of way. So
Yeah, it'd be great to get
certainly
more of
can-
those planted. It is if that's the outcome of this, then I think
Name
that's
the
great.
trees, please.
If we
Does anyone have anything else for the record? So we can close at least the formal part of the meeting.
I do. Can I just add
Sure.
that I'm delighted that this tree discussion became a bigger discussion about the safety on the road and the replanting, because and also the sidewalks. There's a lot of sidewalk repair that has to be done there. If we can consider all that with the discussion of this tree, I think it'd be a lively way to enhance East Norwalk, because that's a really beautiful area.
But one tree, I agree, but if we planted, I don't know, 10 trees along that fence line of the park and in the snow shelf, we'll look at that too.
Sure.
She said 14 based on the DB.
Well, I'm just,
Well, yeah,
I'm saying,
But that makes me feel better,
Yes.
okay?
Chris,
I'm
give me
telling you, that
20.
makes
We
me
gotta
feel
do it
better.
now.
I'll tell you what. It doesn't make me feel better. You cannot replace this tree.
You can't.
This
You're
tree-
totally
That is
right.
true.
Is an ancient thing. I cannot believe we're going to take it down because we think something might happen.
You know what?
It's
You and I think
statistically-
alike.
Yes, I
What
do.
is your
Yeah.
name again?
Jeffrey.
Jeffrey, I'm Michelle, and I live around the corner. And yes,
I know.
it's like
Really?
cutting down your grandmother because she's got a
Correct.
bad leg.
But I appreciate the process. I do. I'm glad to be able to say something. And I
Yeah.
have no evidence to prove this, but I would tell you that the vast majority of the neighborhood does not want to lose this tree. It's a part of our personality for the neighborhood.
Just so you know, the city doesn't want to lose the tree either.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
But
sad.
I'm
Yeah.
calling it is,
It is
it
sad.
doesn't give us any pleasure. And I would love to walk into this meeting and say, oh, no, tree's staying,
Yeah.
all done. Honestly, I think everyone in the room would prefer that.
Yes, I
But,
appreciate
so
the
Delene?
thoughtful consideration.
Yep,
6:59, we're going to adjourn the meeting.
okay,
Thanks.
have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you.
joining.
6:15, the discussion has to stop, but